Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of TED Excellence, the show where lore is not a bore. And I hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Thursday morning. I know it's a bit of a different situation for everybody, but this is the Halloween special, and we come to you live from my secret vampire castle on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and joining me today from Midnight's Edge, Andre Einherjar. Did I get that right? I tried really hard to get that right.
Close enough. No one can get it exactly right, so that's much for trying.
I practiced a lot. I promise I did. And also joining me is Tom Connors, or Keeners, something. One of the three.
Blood.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Yes, welcome to the special Halloween episode of TED Excellence, where we look at off-brand TED Talks for information and entertainment. Today's special because about a week ago or so, there was posted onto the TED Talk site a new talk asking the question, why do vampires not cast a reflection? And that's all I know about the talk. But the thumbnail they used was from the still from the 1922 F.W. Murnau film Nosferatu. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, hey, I know a couple of guys that know something about Nosferatu and vampires, and that'd be Andre and Tom, because recently, if you didn't already know, they have produced a 2024 remaster of that film with a brand new soundtrack, new sound effects, correctly translated title cards, and corrected tinting to tell the time of day and such during the course of the events of the film. And you can find that all for free on their new Midnight's Edge Retrospectives and Classics channel. Links to all of that is in the description below. But with all that as introduction, good morning, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, we have killed a few vampires in our time, so.
Yeah. Indeed. So yeah, thanks for having us. Let's commence.
Yeah, so I have no idea what this guy's going to talk about. I assume it's going to be vampire lore. So this might be more of an informational TED Talk than some of the more persuasive essay or controversial subjects that I've looked at in the past. So we might just be a bunch of nerds listening to a guy tell stories about how vampires work, and or maybe having some disagreements with his conclusions. We will have a bingo card for this episode, though. Bingo card B. I put the link to the bingo card in the private chat for you guys if you want to follow along. And for everybody else, the links are in the description below. So let's get on with it, because I know everybody here's got a little bit of a schedule to deal with. Let me pull this up. There we go. All right, so this one runs just under 14 minutes. And if you guys have something you want to say during the course of it, just give me the hi sign and I'll pause it and just start talking over the speaker, and we'll see what we have going. This is an experiment, guys. I've never had two co-pilots on a TEDx before, as far as I know.
I'm interested to see what he's going to say. That's really cool.
These can be fun.
We'll see how much it aligns with what you guys, because as well, guys, in addition to doing the remaster of the Nosferatu film, Andre and Tom have also produced a documentary about the creation of that film itself, along with the corrections and enhancements they've made to it. All that, again, can be found on the Retrospectives and Classics channel. So, with that, start off with a few seconds for a sound test. It'll be quiet at the beginning because I took out the musical stinger for potential copyright reasons. But as soon as you guys can hear it, let me know and we'll proceed.
We're here today to hear compelling ideas.
Okay, well, compelling ideas. You guys hear that?
Yeah, right off the bat.
All right, compelling ideas about?
New innovations in thinking, science, and medicine.
Really?
And innovative solutions to our most vexing problems in society. So they said to me, Eric, do you have anything that you can add to this compelling list of stories? Or
his name's Eric. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was a he or a she at first there.
It sounds a bit like a mad scientist. I'm kind of like expecting like a talk of like raising the dead right now. So let's see where this goes.
Like Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde.
Now, given the energy level of most TED Talk audiences, raising the dead might be apropos.
Or in ideas.
Yeah.
Something you can talk about here on the TED stage. And I said, of course I do.
Okay.
And the question I want to explore with you today is, why don't vampires cast reflections in mirrors?
Because they have no souls. That was my understanding. Also, wait a second. TEDx? This is supposed to be a TED Talk. This is false advertising. This was on Ted's channel, and it said Ted at the front. Oh, man. Already I've been duped. Anyway. So what is your guys' understanding of why vampires don't cast reflections in mirrors?
Tom, you want to go first?
I honestly never really had a good explanation for it, other than they can't be out in the sunlight usually. That's not always the case, though. You usually need light to see something in a mirror, I guess.
Yeah,
honestly,
I am not entirely sure where that particular thing comes from. I
think it comes from Dracula, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would speculate that it's a relatively late addition, and it's not something in actual folklore. Because when you look at folklore, most people didn't have mirrors. Go back to Europe in like the 14th, 15th, 16th century. How many people in the countryside had mirrors? So I don't think it's from there. I think it's something relatively modern, kind of like that vampires burn up in the sun. This was something that we know exactly who came up with. It was the people behind Nosferatu. That's how that was added into vampire lore. And I would surmise that it's the same thing with the mirrored thing, that it's a relatively modern invention from Western society and not from actually Eastern European mythology. But that's my speculation. Let's see where this goes.
If it originated in Dracula, my other possibility where it made it come from is it probably originated with the idea that vampires didn't like to look at themselves. Not so much that they couldn't see their reflection, they just probably didn't like to see what they had become.
Yeah.
So that's probably where it started, and then it just migrated from there until Dracula, where it became just can't see his reflection at all, period.
Yeah, my two understandings of the lore is, one, either the vampires have no souls and you need a soul to be reflected in a mirror, and or it's related to the fact that mirrors used to be, and still are in some instances, made from silver sheen. And silver is vampires have a deterrence to silver and vice versa.
That's right. I've heard that before, actually, now that you mention it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what our expert has
also,
to say.
just to add to that real quick,
Yes.
Because we just did review of sorts of the 2020 Nosferatu, not Nosferatu, but Dracula, BBC's Dracula, who is gay. And they actually do address that thing there, because he actually can see himself in the mirror, but he doesn't want to see himself in the mirror. He crushes every mirror he sees. And why is that? Well, exactly as Tom was saying, it's because he doesn't like what he sees, because he may appear young, but in the mirror he sees the old, decrepit, broken husk that he actually is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, see, I mean, that might even be in the book, because that kind of reminds me of something. Maybe that might even been something they invented for the movie or the play, because for some reason, now that you said that, Andre, that's kind of, when I read the book, I think it mentioned something like that he just doesn't like to see his reflection.
So
we got 17. Yeah, we got 17 different competing ideas of why. Let's see what our
someone can correct me in the
is.
chat, though. Obviously,
sure.
So, you've probably seen this before in movies. The humans are suspicious of the new dark stranger, and they band together in this moment of confrontation. And they open up a mirror in front of them, and bam, there's no reflection there.
Now, just for those of you who are new here, or otherwise, and both for my guests, I have to pause occasionally for the sake of YouTube, otherwise I get content matched and everything. So even if I have nothing particularly pertinent to say, I'll still pause and fill up the air for a moment occasionally. I don't know exactly what my time limit is on this. It's like 15 seconds or something, so I'll do my best.
Proving to the humans that the new dark stranger is, in fact, vampire. That's right. So where did this start? How did this happen? This idea that you could hold a mirror up to an undead creature and learn that they are a vampire. Well,
Bram Stoker's Dracula. I'm guessing it started there, at least as we said in the literal sense. I made a pun.
We're going to find that out.
Okay.
The thing you have to keep in mind is, as we look through the history of vampires, that they change over time. Every culture in history has had a variation on a vampire. Every single one. Very few of them use. Are you laughing at one of these illustrations? Maybe you are.
I don't know that I've seen most of those before. I think the one at the end that's a Chinese ghost or something, I think. Okay. I have my favorite. I have two favorite vampire origin stories. I'm wondering which one he'll go over.
I did sneak one in there. So they don't always call them vampires, but every culture has a version of a supernatural creature who comes back from the dead and gains power by preying on the living. Our version of the vampire really came about in the 16th century. It was a way to conveniently explain some misunderstandings about death and dying.
Fingernails and hair growth, if I remember correctly. Because dead bodies can still have fingernails and hair grow even after death, and so people would...
Which is actually
Actually, that is a myth. The
is
fingernails
it?
hair doesn't grow. Yes, you know what actually happens? It is a complete and total myth. What happens is that the
skin recedes. Yes.
Dries up and recedes.
Right.
Adherence that fingernails and hair has grown. If you check people's gums, teeth will appear to have grown as well, but it's also just the gums receding.
Okay, gotcha.
Some sketchy activity happens in the village. Someone gets an idea, hey, let's dig up Wolfgang. And they open his coffin, and they find that his hair and his fingernails and his teeth have all seemed to grow since he died. And they see some fluid around his mouth, which they mistakenly think is blood. Proof that Wolfgang is a vampire. But this is actually what happens to a body when it's decomposing.
Okay, so this is... I wasn't sure if this was going to be some kind of Trojan horse presentation of like, it was going to be... We're talking about vampires, and then we're going to lead into some kind of cultural or societal sort of...
So far, he's not doing too bad.
No, so far.
Not that they're undead. Our understanding of vampires really exploded, or our lexicon for vampires really exploded in the 18th century after a rabies outbreak in Hungary and Romania. Now, the thing to remember is when a human contracts rabies, it can take a couple weeks before symptoms start to manifest.
It was rabies? I always thought it was the plague. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So some really common vampire characteristics, like an avoidance of bright lights, or strong smells like garlic.
Pause for 1 second. That's actually the origin for not just vampires, but also for zombies, werewolves. All of these probably start from the exact same thing. It's basically the undead, right? And then it's like some places, the myth of the undead shapes into the legend of vampires. Other places, it shapes to the legend of zombies and lichens and what have you. All of them basically bring disease and death. That's what they have in common. It's just kind of like slightly different cultural expression. And the other same thing.
Yeah, sorry. And the other, because Dracula himself, as far as I know, that came more out of warning of sexually transmitted diseases and stuff like that. What am I, if I'm not mistaken? So I mean, the original, like I always thought it went back to the plague, and obviously that's where rats and bats were always associated with vampires because rats were thought to have carried the plague when we find out it was actually the fleas that they were carrying.
Right. Well, I mean, all
bats, that would make sense with the rabies outbreak, especially if it was a bat.
Yeah. Well, all of this goes back to the human reflex to try to explain and answer the questions of the world around them. And when you don't have good answers or informed answers,
and somebody who has rabies to the untrained eye would probably look like a frothing at the mouth.
Exactly.
Right, and also their behavior.
Zombie.
Yeah,
exactly,
the neurological damage from rabies can cause somebody to behave like a monster, depending on the circumstances. Yeah, so
maybe even take a chunk out of your ass.
Could be.
An aversion to water and suddenly aggressive behavior are not signs of the undead. They are signs of rabies. But back then they couldn't put those things together.
Aversion to water was another one that actually started, I think it started as just water in general, and then it slowly became holy water, if I remember right.
And also you can't cross running water as an old vampire.
That's another one I think you had mentioned to us not too long ago too, or Andre I think brought it up, one of the two, but yeah.
Yeah, I most of my vampire lore is from reading books, but also because I was steeped into Vampire the Masquerade for many, many, many years, and there's a lot of vampire myths and things that have been mixed up into that as well. So,
big fan of Kindred, the Embraced. Which
Kindred the Disgraced, yeah. Aaron Spelling's vampire show.
Yeah, but anyway, of course, when you think about it, it makes sense because what is it that water does? It
Cleanse.
washes, it cleanses. It's going to make filthy stuff like vampires disappear. And then bring on Christianity, because obviously vampires, the undead, this is stuff that goes back to before the Ice Age. This goes back to the dawn of civilization. There's always been some kind of expression of the undead in culture. And then with the onset of Christianity, I agree with Tom, then the water became holy water.
Right. Well, and I like how he brought up that every culture because this is kind of true. And this is something I've noticed in my research, what little I've done as far as like monster, cryptozoid kind of research. Every culture has some sort of witch figure, goblin figure, and what's weird about the goblin one is almost every one is the same variation on the same word. That's the one that always sticks out to me. Like goblin, gobbling, it's always something very close to that. And even like, see, the funny thing is almost every kind of creature that falls into that category in some places, they just call it that, no matter what it was. And then vampires, of course, being the third one, where almost every culture has some sort of variation on the vampire, which he brought up, right? Everything from whether it's like the Nosferatu kind of take on the vampire, not the name itself, but just the idea of how that vampire works compared to Dracula and so on. And some of the other vampires that we've seen in classic literature and culture, and obviously, from everywhere from China to Russia to, I'm sure even parts of Britain had,
plenty goblins
lores
and stuff like that in British
Yeah, exactly.
mythology.
All this lore coming from the same kind of ideas that I love this guy's explanation so far. I thought this was going to be a stupid one, but so far he's not doing a bad job.
I expected something like this.
Yeah, no, I anticipated something more informational, but since it's not a social dynamic subject or something else, sometimes TEDx's can be good. This might be one of them.
They didn't think that the neighbor who's acting funny now, it wasn't because of the raccoon that bit them 2 weeks ago. It's because now a much more logical explanation is that they are in fact a vampire. So most of our ideas of vampires that we all think of came about in the movies. Count Dracula and Sherlock Holmes have been in a decades-long battle to be the most depicted fictional character in film. It goes back and forth every couple of years.
I keep forgetting that Sherlock Holmes is a contemporary of a lot of these other characters, too. I just have to think of like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and all how, these all came about within the same
all of these came around the same time. Like most of our modern mythology came in the early 19th century, if not directly, then indirectly. I mean, like for instance, Batman and superheroes, they can trace their lineage to the Phantom and to Zorro, which is straight back to this period.
And the Shadow. Yeah.
And that even goes back to ancient cultures all having like almost a Jesus type figure or something like that, which could lead into the superhero kind of mythos.
And if we stick with literature, 17th century, the Scarlet Pimpernel, precursor to all of those.
I think Gilgamesh was probably the first superhero of a kind.
That's the oldest story we have also.
Yeah.
And as I was saying in the earlier part, like I'm not surprised that most of what we think of as a modern vampire it comes directly from movies and television and comic books.
Sure. I mean, it just new media for old storytelling is all it is.
And since we have lost touch with the folk tales, obviously we are going to associate it with the movies, and it'll be contaminated in that sense.
Right.
When we think of the vampire in film, there are some things that are quite iconic to us, like Nosferatu, right?
Oh, there he is, your favorite guy. I'm sure you're sick
well, this
of looking
is my
at this
favorite
now.
depiction of a vampire, period, just because I figure, like, in my mind's eye, if there's a real vampire, this is what he looks like.
Oh, okay.
This is how he functions, and I love how they depicted him in not so much just the movie itself, but Shadow of Vampire. With Willem Dafoe playing the actual character and how they play with the idea that Max Schreck was actually a vampire.
Right.
And that to me, and the greatest, one of the best scenes in there is when you got him and Udo Carr and the other guy, they're just sitting there talking and drinking and they're just kind of asking him questions and he kind of goes through the back and forth. And in that, it feels like you're getting like a real breakdown of what it is to be a vampire. And it's funny because a lot of the inspiration for Nosferatu, as Andre can pick up and say here, comes from a real place.
Yeah, it does.
Besides Dracula.
So you enjoyed the interview with the vampire, you say?
Yeah. No, the two people in the interview with the vampire, it's Henry Gallen, the writer of Nosferatu, and Albin Grau. the true originator of Nosferatu. It's those two that the Max Schreck character is drinking with and telling the horrors of being a vampire, which is the best part of that movie. And of course, it was Albin Grau who first got the idea to do that movie when he was serving in World War I for the German side, of course, and he was stationed in Serbia. And that's where he was told the story of a local farmer who basically relayed to him that, yeah, there's undead around here. My dad is an undead, which kind of sucks, and we hope he's not going to torment us. So we try to stake our dead if we suspect something.
And through learning this is where I kind of was like, okay, I see where a lot of the modernisms we have in vampires probably originated in Serbia then. Mm-hmm. That's what it sounds like to me, because a lot of the things that he changed about Nosferatu are the things that we associate the most with a vampire. Now, like Andre brought up earlier, the sun being one of them and certain other things like that. So the ideas that he took and ran with were things that he was supposedly told by this individual that were different than what was in Dracula. Because for those who may not realize this, even though it's always kind of treated like, oh, these guys tried to pull a fast one on Bram Stoker or the estate, that is, and get this made without paying them. No, they credit Bram Stoker right in the credits. Yeah. they just figured they were doing their own version, and it was different enough that they didn't have to pay for it. And with the way copyright laws were back then, it probably wasn't as clear in German law how it worked out. Because
that's exactly right. It was a matter of, we're just doing a play here. We don't have to do anything else. It wasn't as established. There was no intention to shirk copyright. What it really was, Albin Grau, he was doing a vampire movie anyway. And he learned of Dracula, he read it, he was like, hey, you know what, this is kind of like the perfect setup. He wasn't interested in doing a literal adaptation. He didn't want to do this novel. No, he wanted to do his version, and his version was just very, very well, would benefit from the story of a young lawyer or real estate broker goes from civilization to the ancient world and brings the ancient world back with him that they can't fight. It was just that concept. That was all that he wanted, which is why they changed up the characters and simplified so much, because he really had no interest in any of the other things that makes Bram Stoker's Dracula into Bram Stoker's Dracula. He was just interested in the civilization meeting the ancient world. And Bram Stoker found such a great way of doing that he just decided, we're going to go with this setup right here. But when you look at the story, he's just doing the setup. And after that, they go in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact for you about Nosferatu. Outside of that, most people get something wrong. They think it's the first vampire movie. But it was the first one that was anything like approaching a hit. The fun fact I want to share with you is that every copy of Nosferatu that any of us have ever seen is illegal bootleg. The Bram Stoker's widow sued the filmmakers for copyright infringement. She was worried that Nosferatu was going to cut into the quite lucrative royalties from the stage version of Dracula.
This guy's on point so far.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
The stage versions of Dracula didn't exist at the time. The very first stage version of Nosferatu came in 1925. Sorry, first stage version of Dracula came in 1925. There were no stage versions, so this is incorrect.
Oh my gosh.
She wasn't worried at all about it cutting into the revenue stream of the stage plays, because that only came later. It was just a matter of, I'm lacking money because the wife of Bram Stoker, Florence Stoker was her name. The only thing that she wanted out of them was money. She wanted go away money, because she had one source of revenue, and that was the book sales of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Everything else she had given away. She signed off his entire literary estate for the sum of 400 British pounds, for the simple reason none of his other books were in print and none of them were selling. Only Dracula was selling. That was popular enough that it remained in print, so she kept the rights to that one. And that The fees for that she got every once in a while, that is what kept her alive, basically. And here then comes this production company that makes a movie inspired by the book. And she also learned that they had like this huge, massive, lavish premiere in Berlin. That's when she figured, these people have money. I need money. I want some money. They are to give me money. Unfortunately, this was before they had actually sold the movie to anyone, because they had this huge, lavish premiere in order to attract foreign distributors and stuff like that. But before any major sales could be made, that's when she started her legal warfare. And they basically shut down the company and stuff because they couldn't afford paying her off. She just wanted go away money. Only later came the stage plays. If the stage plays had indeed come first, she wouldn't have minded as much, because the stage plays later, they kind of like bailed her out because that was more money, which is all she ever wanted. So here we have a mistake.
Okay, well,
and I think the other motivation behind it was, because this is what never made sense to me, was she basically got the rights to the movie,
yes,
as part of the deal, and instead of just exploiting that, she had the movie destroyed.
Yeah.
So my interpretation of this is her motivation was she wanted to sell the film rights. That's what she wanted. She knew there was some money in there somewhere, whether it was between the film and the stage right. Because Andre's right. The first stage presentation of Dracula was after the case was already done. Now, it did take a few years for all this stuff to take place. Because, yes, the movie came out in 1920, and then it probably hit the U.S.
And,
or 1922, and then it didn't hit the U.S. until like 23 or 24 or something like that, and that's when she learned about it and stuff like that. But yeah,
no, she learned about it right away. She learned about it right away.
I thought the way I read it was a little later, because the court case itself didn't happen until like 3 years after the fact.
That's correct. She started the legal warfare right away, but it was finally settled in 1925 when everything else was shuttered. That's when the German judge said, all right, okay, fine. These people, they don't have anything to give you. The company has been shut down. No one has claimed the movie. So just to make you go away, we're going to award you the rights to this movie. Now go away. That's basically what happened. And unfortunately, she didn't know what to do with the movie. So she just decided, I don't even want to see this, because she didn't like Dracula. She just wanted the money. She had no interest in the movie. Probably she was afraid. This is just me speculating here. But around this time, by the time she got the rights, this is when the Dracula stage plays started to come out. So this is just my speculation.
That's where I think he's crossing over here, is what I was getting to.
That she probably figured that, oh shit, if there's a Dracula, if there's a Nosferatu movie, people might go see that instead of the Dracula stage play that I get money from. We can't have that happen, so burn the movie. That would be my best guess. I wish I'd thought of that before, but that's
where I think he's coming from, and that's what I was getting at too. But
yeah,
like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. The main point is the reason that the whole fact that she didn't want anybody to see the movie is probably the whole reason we have the movie to this day, because most of Murnau's films have been lost to time. This is one of the few that has been preserved.
Most movies from this period, like 80% of movies made.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know where he was going. He just dipped out there on his internet.
Something else. Oh, there we go. I was afraid we had lost Ted Dexter.
No, we lost you for a second there.
Oh, was it me that was lost?
That was you. Yeah, you went out. You went off into the distance.
Oh, I was talking about that you guys were lost, but It's funny how that works. Anyway, here I'm back again.
All right. Well, with that being said, over on the bingo card, we can actually finally start circling some circles here. So we're going to circle free space and anecdote that probably never happened, in the sense that his story there, while not 100% wrong as far as like elements, is as far as wrong as timing and everything. So
correct.
For those of you listening at home, the links to the bingo cards are in the description below. Not sure if we'll get many bingos today, because like I say, it's more of an informational thing than a persuasive essay kind of deals we usually deal with. But bingo card B for Bram Stoker. Let's keep going.
That was being performed in the UK and the US. She won that lawsuit, and in her settlement, she demanded that every copy of the film be destroyed. Most people, when they think of vampires, think of the 1931 Todd Browning classic, starring Bela Lugosi.
Starring Count Dracula, yeah.
As Count Dracula. You almost can't overstate how huge a movie this was. It not only really established vampire movies, it started a vampire movie trend that lasted for over 2 decades. It was the first mainstream hit that was a horror film. It really established horror as a genre in film and set up expectations for like even Frankenstein. It came later that same year.
Again, occasional YouTube pausing for the sake of pausing. Let's see, just checking the chat real quick. Oh, by the way, guys, I completely forgot. I didn't do the usual introductions because guests and everything. But at the top of the chat box, guys, we have some GoFundMes up there for our friends AJ, Roan Harushan, Angela Ariaga, and Kristen. If you guys can take a look at those when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, please do so. Even if you can't, if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated. And also, thank you, Kiefer Dam, for providing those, as always. All right.
Just doing some yard work here. Yeah, Andre, actually, the first stage play was 27. So
Oh, there you go.
farther.
Okay, yeah.
It was even farther
later
down
then.
the line. Yeah.
Even further down the line.
Okay.
Since this whole craze of vampires really started with Dracula, we've had so many hundreds of variations on the vampire. We have had samurai vampire. We have had plumber vampires. We have had vampire babies. We have had stripper vampires. We've had a vampire movie about every member of Dracula's extended family. Son of Dracula, daughter of Dracula, father of Dracula, bride of Dracula. We've even had Dracula's dog.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Also,
got that
Blackula. What about Blackula?
Yeah, you forgot about Blackula.
Blackula, man. Where's Blackula?
And Zoltan, Hound of Dracula.
You know, the original King of Cartoons was Blackula
He was.
on Pee-wee's Playhouse. Yeah.
Dracula. There is one definitive thing I can tell you about vampire movies,
Okay.
and that is vampire movies suck.
Opinions are divided on the subject.
I think he's trying to be punny.
Yeah, that was just that's all that was. Okay. Of course, there's a movie called, a parody called Vampires Suck or something like that. That was like one of those not another teen movie kind of deals. So he's going to bring that up, isn't he?
And I'm not being metaphorical here. Vampire movies are not good movies.
Hey, now, wait a second. Near Dark, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Habit, The Addiction. I could go on and on and on.
Lost Boys?
Lost Boys. Sure, I mean...
He's gay enough to like Lost Boys. This is BS.
That's nonsense. And by the way, if you guys haven't seen Near Dark, except for the ending, which is all cheese, but otherwise, Near Dark's a great movie. It's basically the cast of aliens as vampires. It's great.
The Hunger, wasn't that other one too?
The Hunger, yeah. David Bowie and... what's her name?
Bowie looks like a vampire, yeah.
Yeah, he really does. Thank you, Kiever Dam. That pun was fantastic.
Well, not only that, I make the joke constantly that Dracula's been killed on screen more times than any other character, and it's probably true. Right? Because Dracula, as they point out in the beginning here, has been adapted almost as many or more times than Sherlock Holmes as far as to the screen. So, yeah.
Well, Kiever Dam, you at least get... There you go. Thank you, Kiever Dam. Appreciate it.
We can give him a little laugh.
And also, Okie Native, thank you so much. Does the speaker sound like Chris Gore to anyone? He does.
Like Chris Gore's gay brother, yes.
All right. Okay, so he thinks all vampire movies are terrible. I believe he is demonstrably wrong.
So why is this? Why is it that these movies don't really last very long?
What are you talking about? What? No.
We have two of arguably the most oldest and well-known films are Dracula and Nosferatu.
Yeah, he just said, why don't they last very long? Like, okay, this deserves that.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
Yeah, he does a whole present. That's Malkovich from Burn After Reading. Okay, well, I wasn't imagining I'd do a whole card circle on this one, because I thought it would just be, a sort of folklore informational kind of thing. But now this guy's completely off the ranch now. Why don't we know these movies? Why do they suck and on and on? No, dude.
We've
Dracula.
mentioned half a dozen already.
Yeah, you already brought up Dracula and Nosferatu, for crying out loud.
We haven't even brought up John Carpenter's Vampires.
No. Well, now the book by John Steakley is
I
far
was gonna say, which
superior.
is based on a very popular book.
Yeah, John Steakley's book is far superior to the movie, but still the movie's fun anyway.
It's because
Which, if I
we
remember-
keep changing our.
Was that
I
right?
was just gonna say, I think that has I think it has fun with the rules in that story as well.
Yeah, it is an interesting interpretation of vampires in there. I like, you know what? There's even elements of relatively bad vampire movies that I like a lot. The origin of Dracula in Dracula 2000, I think, is one of the more creative origins for Dracula, next to Vampire the Masquerade and everything.
I still
But
need
that's-
to see that movie. Actually, I have
Dracula 2000. Oh man, Gerard Butler is Dracula.
Oh.
I mean, it's fun. It's a fun
I saw
movie.
it
But
way back in the day. But
yeah, but I tell you, the origin story they come up for him in that one is actually, and a lot of the other accoutrement about Dracula's, banes and everything. I really like the way that they cooked that up. It's still a bit of a cheese fest, but all the same.
Idea of what terrifies us and what scares us. Speaking of things in common, there's one thing that vampire movies do not have in common. Does
I can't wait to hear this, given your first one.
anyone want to guess what vampire movies do not have in common?
How vampires are killed?
Vampires.
Mirrors.
Yeah, there are usually variations in how vampires operate story to story most of the time. It's true.
Let's get it and see what he says about the mirror.
It became such a hot trend for vampire movies that people would slip the word vampire into the title, even though there wasn't a vampire in the movie. There's multiple ones of these. The
Vampirus Lesbos? Wait, there were vampires in that one, wasn't there?
I think so, yeah.
The most notorious of these was the 1952 stinker called My Son, the Vampire, which did star a late career Bela Lugosi.
That looks... Wait,
why don't I know about that one?
I've never heard of that one before.
Me either. Because I thought I had all
Is
three
that an
times he's
Ed
played
Wood title or something?
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
I
because I
know,
know
right?
the few times he's played vampires, I thought I had them all.
Is that Roddy McDowell?
It looks like somebody. I don't know who it is.
But he didn't play a vampire, and no one else in the cast did either. But they figured it would be a big trend and get in on a big trend.
So what was it about?
And did
that's
this.
why.
So not even this.
So you have one example of them using the word vampire in a title for a movie not about vampires, and so what? That's an edge case. That means nothing.
Happened. I often get asked, what is the best vampire movie I've ever seen and the worst vampire movie I've ever seen? And it may surprise you to learn
Yes.
that the best vampire movie I've ever seen and the worst vampire movie I've ever seen
Are the same movie.
I was waiting for that, yeah.
All right. Any predictions?
He's either going to go for the gusto, and it's either going to be the original 31 Dracula,
Mm-hmm.
because he's already given some praise to Nosferatu, or it's going to be like Interview with a Vampire or some shit.
Bram Stoker's. I bet it's Bram
Or
Stoker's.
Bram
Dracula.
Stoker's. That you're
Yeah,
right.
I think Bram Stoker's. Yeah, it's going to be one that everyone knows.
Yeah.
are the same film. Jesus Christ, Vampire Hunter.
You're going easy on this one. Like,
Really? Come on.
So we know a lot
going
about
for the cheap
Jesus,
one.
right? But somehow history has forgot that Jesus of Nazareth is apparently also a kung fu master.
Well, of course he is.
Yeah, he can do anything. He
invented
can walk
kung
on
fu.
water. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like the
It's like the original Blade.
Jennifer, what's her name, who was the first woman who ever played a superhero. That's
Yeah.
what
Well, if Jennifer Lawrence was a man.
Jennifer Lawrence, that's right. I forgot her name.
And in this movie, Jesus comes back to Earth to save the world and humanity from a vampire cult who is taken over.
As he would.
And he uses his kung fu skills to do this.
I'm waiting for the part where this is bad.
Yeah, it's like, this is a bad, I mean, yes, and
And one more
Honestly,
little tidbit.
yeah.
This is just the precursor to things like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like that.
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and such. Yeah,
Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter is also a musical. So just
go ahead.
I just said sold.
for your enjoyment, I did bring along the trailer to this great piece of cinema.
Oh no, I might have to cut this out because I don't know if that's going to be if
It
has
looks cheap
music or
enough. I don't
something
know.
or
It's hard to
something.
say. Yeah.
I'm hesitant now to play this part out. I might skip it, guys. Sorry.
I'll skip it. Go for it. Don't risk it.
Yeah, I don't want to. Oh, and the imagery as well. Who knows what YouTube's going to do to me? Okay, we're going to skip over that. All right, sorry, everybody. If you want to look up the trailer for Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure, pretty easily.
Yeah. I am assuming that you're all in some state of stun after seeing that. So let me give you a real quick recap of what you saw. You saw Jesus riding a Vespa. Then you saw Jesus getting his hair cut. Then you saw Jesus kicking some holy ass.
When do we get to the mirrors?
Yeah, when does it get interesting?
Yeah, this might turn out to be just like a regular TEDx by the end of it. Let's see.
And you also saw El Santo, the famed Mexican mask wrestler, who is in the film and plays Jesus' sidekick. So I think we've established over the last several minutes that there are many colors in the vampire rainbow.
Yeah, and...
So let's not get too far away from our original point.
Too late.
Why don't vampires, in all these bad films, bad novels, bad stories, why do none of them ever cast reflections in mirrors? I mean, they're not one, but several vampire tales where the vampires are deathly scared of uncooked rice.
Uncooked rice? Oh, is it because... Well, so some of the vampire stories are... They have effectively like OCD. If you want to like distract a vampire, leave a string tied with a bunch of knots and they'll be compelled to untie the knots. You drop a bunch of rice, they're compelled to pick up every piece of rice, that kind of thing. That's also an element of vampire lore I've heard before. Is that what he's going to be going off on?
Yeah, true. Count Von Count from Sesame Street is based off of the idea that vampires are obsessed with counting. And if they see sand or rice on the ground, they're going to have to stop and count every grain. The sun comes up and they die.
That's actually associated with goblins as well.
Okay.
Like house goblins. Yeah.
Okay.
Improvise a little bit for you right there. So now see if I can find my place back into what I'm talking about. So if you want the answers to why they don't cast reflections in mirrors, the answer is that there really isn't a clear answer to this question. The consensus thinking is that when you hold, it comes from the habit or something people did of holding a mirror up to a deceased person's face to see if the warm breath would fog up the mirror.
I didn't even think of that as a possibility.
I'd never heard that one before.
That's a plot. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that could be an origin for it. Yeah.
That sounds like something that's retroactively fit in.
But then again, I was going to say, how long ago would people have had pocket mirrors?
Mirrors.
When did women start having mirrors that they could carry along?
Mirrors were a luxury back in the olden days. That's why they were set in like really fancy jeweled things, is because they were such a luxury.
I mean, did the Undertaker have a specific mirror or something like that? Maybe that I don't know. That's a possibility.
And it doesn't need to be a mirror. Any blank surface would do. If you have a piece of glass,
any glass
surface.
Yeah, exactly.
I press X for doubt on this one.
I'll swing it back around and I'll give it some credence in what Scribe was saying, in that it could have originated from, let's say, like, and again, I'm just speculating that an Undertaker might have a piece of glass or something or a mirror that they carry with them for that specific reason. And maybe that's where the whole idea of you can't see your soul in the mirror comes from, is that you didn't see your breath on the mirror anymore or the piece of glass. Hence, they were dead, but they weren't dead because I mean, I know I'm kind of pulling yarn out here, but
yeah, okay. Let's see.
I can see the extrapolation from there. Yeah.
But you kind of have to, because if indeed the original reasoning has been lost, and that's what he's saying here, we do not know exactly where it comes from, and then Hollywood will further have diluted it, because I can now tell the rest here. There's something with vampires and mirrors. We do not know exactly what it is, but then Hollywood has really influenced our modern day perception of it. This thing with souls and stuff. I mean, you can see your clothes in the mirror. I doubt anyone will ever think that they have souls.
Right. Well, and the thing with I do kind of wonder, I would like to, I don't know obviously anything about old Undertakers, but I'm wondering if that is part of their, because, you know, it was a big deal, especially in like, what was it, the late 1800s or early, or actually even before that, where people would always get buried alive, right? Because they think they were dead and they were technically not dead. And and that's what I was saying. I can kind of see that being part of a Undertaker's arsenal to check if somebody's alive.
Well, yeah, they'd have bells and stuff.
That actually may be kind of like part of the vampire myth as well. People that were,
it is, yes,
and also zombies. People that were buried alive and they try to dig themselves up. Like, and you have, like,
well, you'll
see, they hear the screaming and all that kind of stuff from
You've also you can also see in many really old graveyards some graves that have cages over them. In one sense, they are to protect the grave from being robbed by others, but also purportedly to keep something from coming out. Yeah. And there was Edgar Allan Poe, I think, described certain situations where someone would be buried with a bell string on the off chance they're buried alive.
That was very real. That wasn't just him. Like, he described.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I was saying is I think that might, and it does make sense to me that an Undertaker, being that was such a big deal back then, and that was something that was normal, that would possibly be where that would originate from. And even though a mirror wouldn't be something that a normal person would have, an Undertaker would have something similar to that to check for somebody's breath, I bet. That's what I was thinking, is that there was such a big deal back then that they had that as a common issue. To where, like, I know that's partially also where the zombie/vampire thing comes from too, is because they would literally hear these people coming back to life and screaming to death in their tomb as they, you know, and by the time they would even be able to dig some of these people up, if they were able to, if they could hear them, they were gone by the time they get to them, right? And otherwise they were sealed in like what do you call it? Where they're above ground, but they're in a cemetery.
A tomb.
Is it called? There's another name for it.
Mausoleum.
Mausoleum. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a new theory I hadn't heard before. Let's see what else he has to say.
And if you think about it, if someone's lying prone and you hold a mirror up to their face, what you're going to see in that mirror is the wall. You're not going to see them.
He's going at it kind of stupidly, though. I can see it extrapolating the other way, but like,
yeah.
Therefore, no reflection in the mirror.
No doctor or Undertaker would be that dumb.
No.
There's actually a far simpler answer than this.
Oh, boy. Okay, what's simpler than that?
When you look at vampires and how they change over time, what was once terrifying and evil becomes dull and campy. We changed the vampire to match our time.
Did we, though? We always kind of depict the vampires out of time.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, it depends
unless
on the
like
vampire.
Lost Boys or
I mean, the window dressing changes, but the ultimate like core idea of the vampire never really changes. But okay, where's he going with this?
But I mean, I'll even attribute like Highlander is kind of a vampire story, in a way.
I suppose if their only food is each other.
Well, no. But what I mean is the idea that somebody just lives through centuries, and that was another thing that I love about Nosferatu, you know, how they depict Nosferatu in, or Count Orlok in Shadow of the Vampire. He's been alive so long, he forgot. He literally says, I forgot. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was so long ago,
Yeah, Rip Van Winkle, the Eternal Man, these things are, I mean, those ideas have been around for a long time. Okay, so what's the more simple answer than that?
1890s, Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel, was thought to be an allegory for the end of Victorian morals. In 1931, when the Dracula starring Count Bela Lugosi came out,
he did it again. He almost called him Count Dracula. Starring Count Dracula.
The idea was that represented a fear of Eastern European immigration.
I could see that,
but a lot of it was also it was also to warn people about sexually transmitted disease. And
if you're going to apply, you know, a modern day or contemporary social or economic or political situations to a production or anything, sure. Like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. Oh, was it about AIDS? Was it about the Reds? You know, the continuing Red Scare? Was all that kind of stuff? Sure, you can and the Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
That's the problem is they try to attribute a lot of stuff to these and. They did the same thing to Nosferatu, right? Like, and that's something Andre brought up and kind of debunked, and that is this whole idea that, you know, that Nosferatu was an anti-Jewish film, basically.
Right.
I don't know if you want to expand upon that, Andre.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of that is kind of like retroactive hypersensitivity, because in that case, where many people said, oh wow, look at all these horrible things we see in this movie that we today associate that the Germans did against the Jews in this time. This movie must be anti-Semitic. When in fact, no, what actually happened was that Jews were being portrayed as deceased and bringers of plague at the time in Germany in the 1920s, 30s. This movie plays upon those same fears, only it makes this vampire the bringer of disease and death, as it associated with rats and everything like that. So basically here you have some kind of evil thing or scary thing that people are freaked out about, that they associated with the Jews at the time, but that the movie actually makes about vampires. It only plays upon those joint Jungian fears, but it gives them a completely different origin. So there's just later hypersensitivity that makes a connection where there is none.
Yeah. Yeah. Reverse engineering art to fit what you think is the time or something or whatever else is nothing new.
Pretty
but
much, yeah.
It's not definitive either.
In the 1950s, vampire films represented a fear of communism.
Not necessarily. They might have just represented capitalism because people went to see vampire movies.
And also, not every single filmmaker would have had a meeting and agreed, okay, we all now decide that now, this decade, we're going to make vampire movies about this, right? Everyone agreed? Okay, go.
Right.
Don't quite work like that. You may have had some big central ones that were about that, not disputing that. But when he says, oh, in the 50s, it was about this. No, they didn't sit down in a meeting room and agreed, now we're going to do this about that. For some things, yes, not for all things.
Yeah,
the 1950s were so sanitized film-wise that I doubt they would have gotten a lot of that stuff, because like a lot of stuff then was just made, and it is really kind of just
there are some things. There are some things that were made with a specific eye towards such ideas, like The Crucible, right? That play was made specifically to sort of to embody the dangers of McCarthyism and things like that. So, yeah, there are some things that are intentionally meant to be statements or allegories or whatever else. But a lot of this stuff is, again, sort of retroactive. It's retconning, to put a little gamer term on it.
We morph the vampire to match our time.
Okay, well then give me a modern example. How did Near Dark match our time? How did Lance Hendrickson's vampire match our time?
And also, I'm not sure that was the case with the Hammer horror Dracula, which came in 1958, which would have been at the tail end of this. There's some oversimplifications here.
Yes.
With this, why don't vampires cast reflections in mirrors?
You already told us you don't know.
I think.
Oh God, Van Helsing. That pony. I hate that. God, I hate that guy. I hate that hairstyle so much.
It's because the vampire is the reflection.
What?
They are a reflection of us.
Oh my God. Did you escape one of my English classes in college? Oh, jeez. I tell you what, I've told this story before. I took an American literature class in college just because it's a prerequisite. You had to take these things. And this teacher, she started teaching us Moby Dick. And we get about 5 pages into the book where she stops and she says, now what does the soup represent? And I just was like, what? And this lady, and this is why it took so long to go through this book. This lady thought that every single element that Melville put in this book was symbolic of something else. And you could sit there staring at your navel for the rest of your life thinking about,
But you think this was a movie?
I know, right?
Yeah, no, because I can believe that on certain things. Like, I'm one of those people who does analyze films that way.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, you can try to look for,
sometimes, sometimes a hot dog is just a hot dog.
Yeah, you go Freud, sometimes a pipe is just a pipe.
Well, that was what I was making fun of.
You go through an endless regression on these things, but okay, give it to us, Professor, so to speak.
They are a reflection of what we fear.
Uh-huh.
They are a reflection of what we consider to be unchecked power without accountability.
Please don't tell me this is going to go into a Trump argument.
So he's a
No.
Democrat, right?
Oh
Okay.
boy, was this entire thing just a Trojan horse to have a political message in the last 2 minutes?
He
That
is
would be
completely
great.
overlooking a lot of history here to jump to this
Yes.
conclusion.
Yes. Okay. I can't wait. All right.
They are our idea of the ultimate villain
Uh-huh.
that lies almost undetectable until someone holds a mirror up to them.
Or it's an expression of hypersexuality, of the changing of the mores between Victorian culture to modern. There's a zillion different things. The Lost Boys, it could be about puberty.
Well,
There's a whole
we
bunch
brought
of things,
on,
dude.
You know, the modernization of vampires. You know what it's been? It's been two things: gay and the boyfriend.
Yeah.
That's what they've done with the modernization of boyfriend. They've sexualized it now, and this started more so with like Interview with a Vampire and Bram Stoker's Dracula, because at that point is the first time we really kind of depicted Dracula in a way where he was seen as a more romantic figure. Even though they did kind of try to present that with Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi, he was still that presence of danger, right?
Yes.
To where it's actually something that I think we brought up in our documentary. If not, we've talked about it several other places and times now, to where that completely altered Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola film, to be clear when I say that. Because when they made the movie, they got to the end of the film, and the film ended the same way the book did originally, but the test audience hated it. And they come to realize what it was because they had made Dracula the hero. They wanted him and Winona Ryder's Mina to wind up together, is what they wanted at the end of the movie. So that was kind of this change in the culture. Even Lost Boys has to do with being gay. And Interview with a Vampire also has to do with being gay. So that's another thing that vampire lore has kind of leaned into in the last
I think one of the major changes in vampire sort of thinking has been the transition from it being a position of authority to something amongst the masses. So rather than Count Dracula, you have something like Interview with a Vampire, where it's just like, it could be anybody. Lost Boys, it could be anybody. Sort of the democratization of vampirism in a way, that it's no longer a representation of ultimate power or like, lineage or something, but that it could be your next door neighbor or something like that, the guy down the street, sort of like
in most cases with
Body
Count
Snatchers.
Dracula, you're right on the first assessment. Like, that is kind of what Count Dracula's character is. He used to be somebody who was feared, looked up to, followed, led. He was basically a god among men, and now he's nothing. And he craves the youth, right, that he once had, and that's what he's doing, is he's taking over a whole new world. And that is part of the story, right? Like, that is, in the broader strokes of Dracula, that is kind of what it's kind of about, is that old guard grasping at losing its power and just wanting that youth, which is still, we live that life today. That's still what politics is, right?
Well, and also Elizabeth Bathory and her, wanting to retain her youth through bathing in the blood of virgins.
Yes, and that's another inspiration for vampires. So it does come from multiple different places. It comes from that. But it also comes from the other sides of it too, is that fear of, the plague and other diseases and stuff like we mentioned before and stuff. That's where the Nosferatu side of this comes from.
Yeah. And then the Faustian bargain of being able to cheat death, but in exchange for a curse.
Again, it's a combination of things that have taken different forms in different locations. Sometimes it's vampires. Sometimes it's vampires with different properties from other vampires. Then it's zombies, there's werewolves, and other versions of the undead. Sometimes you have the Baba Yaga and what have you. So it's all different expressions of the same thing. Like, Eastern European culture is fascinating.
I'm going to see where he goes with this.
And for those that wonder, no, I'm not Eastern European, I'm Northern European, different thing.
Right.
All our talks today are themed around unity.
I guess so. Yeah, this is done at some event that had a theme, I suppose.
The idea that when we come together, we are stronger.
Okay, how are you gonna square this circle?
I would argue that it's not only about the things that we share in common as far as beliefs and things that we believe, but also the darker things that unite us.
Okay, so unite us in fear. That's a great way to live.
When I know what you fear, when I know what goes bump in your night, perhaps I can help protect you. Perhaps we can help protect each other.
From what?
There are so many vampires in the world today. Vampire.
Yay, Christopher Lee. Woo.
Vampire.
Oh, 30 Days a Night. This is like a trivia question for me now.
Vampire.
Oh, no. I knew it.
That was a good one, though.
Yeah, I
was actually
suppose.
pretty good. Could have been worse. Could have been Trump or something. Yeah.
I was waiting for Trump.
Hey, that
Vampire.
laugh sounded just like the one I gave it.
Oh,
no.
Yeah, that's not a vampire.
I'm gonna call BS on that one. They come out during the day, they sparkle and they float around. They got more in common with fairies than they do with vampires.
Yeah, no, sparkly is not the vampire. Let's end it right there.
They're fae. F-A-E, fae. That's what they
But
are.
this is the modernized version of it.
Right.
Look, I get it, and I don't like it, but it is what it is, man. And you know, the other thing that we didn't really point out besides the sexually transmitted disease, why that's a big deal, is because Dracula's other big thing that it has going for it is it's about infidelity, right? Like that's another thing you got to.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in the novel and stuff, yeah, he's like the incubus
On
and
both
everything, yeah.
sides, if you think about it, depending on which version of the story you're going by, yeah, it's either Mina or Jonathan who's having
And the brides.
indiscretion.
Oh, the brides. Yeah.
Vampire.
Okay, Let the Right One In is probably one of the better vampire movies of the last decade or two. Or
And
however long it
controversial
was.
at that, because I remember having to pull it from the shelves. It was kind of fucked
Oh
up.
yeah, because the whole child angle and everything else and their
Yeah.
relationship. Now I go for the original, the remake. No, it's unnecessary.
It was the original is what
great.
we had to pull to be clear, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was
the
because
original's
of the age of the actresses involved, I guess.
Right, and also the implications of the relationship between him, her, and the boy.
Scandinavian movies are sometimes messed up.
Yeah, no, no kidding.
Well, we're not too far removed from that too. Oh, geez.
Okay, Ted Bundy. All right, I guess sort of. Sure, he was a living boogeyman. All right.
Oh, shit.
Oh, the lady in the eyes. Oh shit.
Vampire.
Yeah. Okay. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Sure.
Vampire.
That's
I assume. Yeah, I was about to say, is that Svengoolie? No, is it? Doesn't he usually wear a hat? Maybe I'm.
Yeah, but I think he's dressed as Dracula for something.
Okay.
Vampire.
Oh,
So when I originally put this talk together,
I was waiting for Trump. I was just waiting for Trump.
He thinks he's so clever, though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
there was a picture here. And the TEDx people said, maybe you should take that picture of a politician out.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew. He wanted to. He
Yep.
wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
So predictable.
Oh.
So predictable.
Oh, good gravy.
And I will leave it to you to figure out what politician's picture I just might have put in there. A list of vampires. Maybe better yet, I could ask what politician wouldn't be put in a list of vampires.
Yeah, no, it's sorry. You lose. You lose.
But I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
One thing that I see in so many vampire stories is the thing that brings about the monster's decline.
Women. Almost every time. We don't want to get too deep into that one, do you?
Is when the humans,
Uh-huh.
who are weak and powerless individually, come together and
Not
unite.
true.
No, it's the sun. It's
No,
just-
I knew he was going to get this wrong because Andres actually did a pretty good breakdown of how this is a big deal in like Nosferatu and how it differs from Dracula and all that kind of business and how they handle the
Sacrifice.
vampire. And the thing that he brought up that is really interesting that most people don't jump to when it comes to vampires. You ever notice that 9 times out of 10 to destroy a vampire, you got to go back to old ways. You got to go back to the person who thinks of things in the way they used to be. Like he broke it down to the literal, down to like blood sacrifice and shit in our video. It goes as old as that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the intention. A mob of people can never do anything other than look like idiots. That's pretty much it.
All right, we're almost done.
And they prevail. It's a concept called unity.
No. Okay. There
That's
you
just
go.
bullshit.
Yeah, that is bullshit. That is like cheap high school essay trying to impress your teacher on a theme, wrap up conclusion. That doesn't work at all. And I honestly didn't think that this would become political in any way, shape, or form, but color me unsurprised, I suppose, once he started going down the path in the last 3 or 4 minutes. But there we go. So let's wrap up this portion of everything with the bingo card. So we're going to take a look at this real quick, and I don't know if we'll get any bingos out of it. You never know. But this is how I have the bingo card so far. So guys, if you have any arguments for squares to be circled, hold on to them for a moment or two. I'm going to go across it once with my guests here. We'll see if there's anything that we feel applies, and then we'll go to you guys. So first off, marginalization. I don't know that he ever used the phrase or implied those concepts. Unless you want to go sort of the negative space sense of he was trying to make an argument for unity, which means that people were being scattered to the winds in the first place.
I was going to say, this is more of a revisionist history of what vampires are about.
Yeah.
I mean...
self-vilification or wretchedness. Now, I never really talked about himself or made himself part of the presentation. Contradicts own point or argument. Well, by, honestly, in trying to tie the whole reflection thing back to its reflection of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
and
no.
Also, when he tried to bring it like, just like the mishmash, but trying to bring it back to ourselves, this was kind of like the theme going back to here are these external things that started it, but it's really all about ourselves. To me, that's certainly contrived it qualifies, if nothing else.
Sure. Feminism never came up in any way that I can tell. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. I was kind of surprised he didn't bring up, as you guys have, the idea that vampires were representing the other, or like the invader or something else that might be a reflection of that. The closest I think he got was to the rabies kind of thing, but not really. So, privilege. Not really. I was surprised he didn't bring up, given how he concluded the thing, I'm surprised he didn't bring up some kind of class disparity in vampire mythology. Benevolent condescension. Yeah, that thing at the end. That's sort of like, it's all about us. It's about unity. And no, that's just silly. Weightless example or non sequitur. Yeah, so the Donald Trump, the what's his name guy, the pharmaceutical guy.
I forget his name.
Yeah, squirrely, something squirrely. I don't know, whatever his name was. That's how important he was to me. Please, victim. No, he never really used himself in the course of his presentation, except to say what movie he hated and loved at the same time. Collectivize his own demographic. No, he didn't say, like, as a white man or anything like that. Economic disparity. No, again, I was surprised he didn't go for some kind of class.
Yeah, that was quite
argument.
weak because you have this certainly in modern vampire lore that the vampires tend to be like upper class,
Right.
As opposed to like werewolves being lower class. Check Underworld for examples of that. So that was a huge miss of him right there.
Deceptive statistics. He didn't give us any percentages or anything like that. Just some opinions. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. I didn't hear anything that sounded like a new mantra or anything. A list. I am going to take his photo montage as a list of examples of vampires, if nothing else, because that was part of his arrangement there. Mind reading or assumes motives. Well, at the end there again, what the meaning of vampires and their reflections, or it's about us. I don't mean to keep double dipping on that. There's not a lot to go on in this presentation, but he was imparting some kind of interpretation onto why vampires don't cast reflections and so on, when he told us that he didn't know, and that it's all some kind of like social, societal comment. Patriarchy. No, again, he didn't really get into gender politics in any particular way. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am going to circle this, not because he talked about DEI specifically, but because of the whole unity theme that he was pushing very awkwardly, especially at the end for at least the inclusion part. White supremacy. No, actually, that was kind of surprised too, that in the course of things, he didn't bring up the fact that most vampires are white guys. Childhood or family anecdote. He said his favorite movie, but he never talked about like seeing the movie as a kid or anything like that. So I don't think so.
I was going to say on the one before that, he did draw the comparison to communism and all that kind of business. So, I mean, he kind of got to a point, but.
Yeah, well, it would be remiss if he didn't do that, because there were some movies he just took it too far and said, in the 50s, they did this. Well, he should have said, no, in the 50s, we have this movie and this movie and this movie. They did that. But by contrast, this didn't. That's what he needed to do. That would have been no issue at all. So it was just inaccurate. I wouldn't assign anything more to it. He wanted to hit that note, and he hit it, but just not accurately enough.
Let's see, systemic or institutional? I mean, he didn't really lean on Hollywood so much. The closest I think he got was talking about how, like you just said, all the movies in the 1950s were about that, but that wasn't really that's a kind of, I'll leave that to the audience if they got something. Leaves out vital context. Boy, howdy. I tell you what, I mean, all the stuff that he left out, all the vampire movies are bad. All the extra parts of the history that he left out were left out.
Yeah, I mean, if you had given me 3 hours to prep, I honestly could have done better.
Yeah, and this guy's, I don't even know what his position was supposed to be, but he's some kind of expert. So with that, guys, we actually did get a bingo.
What? Bingo! Yeah!
Of course!
Our first, maybe only, bingo. We'll find out. Sales pitch for product or service. No, he wasn't using this as a stage for posting up his app or something. And lastly, word salad. That ending, I still keep coming back to that very awkward, drawing it back to the theme of the event ending. Was kind of all over the place. It's really a reflection of us and all that. I might be going out on a limb here, but I think I'm going to do that one. All right, so that's what I got, guys. Audience, if you have any arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the chat now. I got to check in because I know you guys might have some schedule times. How much longer can you guys stick around?
I have a few more minutes.
Okay. All right. So let's. I got a couple of extra things that won't require my guests' presence if they have to take off for the Halloween special. But let's see if we can finish up the bingo card at least, and going to the chat. If you have an argument for square to be circle, guys, put it in the chat now. If you tag me, I can see it a little bit easier, but if I don't get to yours, just repost it, and I will try to get to it as soon as I can. Jill Powers, the patriarchy from the Marxist angle, but he didn't argue that. Oh, yeah. There's lots of different ways he could have gone with this to include a lot of these things, but we are, as everybody knows, we are bound to the limits within the presentation itself when it comes to the bingo card. So what did he say, or in the aggregate, what did he imply? Asan, Scribelight, white supremacy, guy never mentioned Blackula. Well, I mean, that is racist right there. That is inherently, I'm not going to mention Black. It mentions Zoltan, or Zoltar, or whatever it was, Dracula's hound, but not Blackula. Tier Alexander, there was a Scribelight that played a game and TEDx Bingo was the name-o. I guess I should have sung that. I apologize. Let's see. What else we got? There we go. Daryl Odell, white supremacy. Of his listed vampires, he left out Blackula and Blade. That's true. He never brought up Blade. That's
not only that, he left out Vampire in Brooklyn, another remake of Dracula.
Yeah. Let's see. Keeverdam, Midnight Jeds After Dark. I should change my schedule. Second shift sucks ass. Well, I mean, Midnight's Edge After Dark happens actually around like 4 p.m. Pacific time. So it's I mean, I guess the sun could have set by that point, depending on where you are. Let's see. Mark Smart, marginalization about vampires being the other. Did he describe the vampires as the other? I did. I know I did. Did he do so, though? I
didn't hear that he did that.
Yeah. I mean, if I was trying to tailor my argument more towards the kind of things I hear in TEDx talks and such things, I could have described the vampire as the outsider, the outcast from society, especially in the case of like a Nosferatu or a Barlow or something. He didn't even bring up Salem's Lot, which is kind of bizarre. But let's see. Jill Powers, the novel Dracula does have a racist passage referring to Africans while Harker is traveling through the countryside of the castle.
It has more than that. I believe there's even like a reference saying that, oh, this is like old Jerusalem or something like that. It does
Right.
kind of like tie him to being Jewish, but who knows what that meant? Maybe he was just traveling during the Crusades.
I mean, you got to remember everybody was racist back then. I mean, like
by modern
Yeah,
standards,
true.
yes, and also travel 100 years forward in time. Everyone today is going to do so or think something that's going to be unacceptable by the future standards.
yeah. Well,
Spittle Buggies plays victim because of ending inserts politicians here. Oh, so, okay, that's So he's saying that under a certain politician, we are all the victim of a vampire. That might be a bit too broad. What do you guys think?
I mean,
I think that's broad. I
Yeah,
mean,
too broad.
because
he did
obviously,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
carry on, Tom.
I was just say he did bring up that that's the thing is he kind of not obfuscates, but he kind of mixed his messages on what vampires stood for, because he goes with the whole they stood for fear communism thing, and then they were a depiction of power, and that's where I talked about there is that element in Dracula and a little bit in Nosferatu, but as far as that goes, but like otherwise.
Well, I mean,
it
he
depends on the
did
vampire.
lead into that by saying, what defeats the vampire? Us coming together.
Yeah,
and then
it's
he
usually
plays into
not.
the politician thing.
And that's where he
And-
kind of lost me, because like that's not generally the case. What usually
No,
brings
it
down
isn't.
the vampire is either some kind of ancient belief, and or
Yeah.
in the modern era, what has it been?
I know what it
Religion.
is. I know what it is. Here's how he plays victim, because TEDx told him not to put up the photo.
There you go. There's one.
That's
But yeah,
that's
the
how
other
you
thing
do it.
is there's been this revisionism where they like to try to take the religion out of it too.
Yeah.
Especially since it's been co-opted more by the gay community and stuff like that, and post Twilight. Like, yeah, that's one thing that's been really removed from the vampire lore a lot of the time is the religious aspect.
All right. Any other arguments for squares to be circled, guys? I mean, we got to decide
But
a WTF.
yeah, I don't know. I make an argument for the patriarchy, but other than that, I don't know. There wasn't enough for white supremacy, though, unless you.
Yeah,
consider-
no, the all the images he used of the vampires were of white guys, and but in the course of the presentation, he never really leaned on that as symbolism for
Right.
anything. So it would be us sort of like extrapolating, and that's. Let's see, anything else? Let's see. Datura Jones. Mary Shelley was actually a big member in Theosophy. Yes. Yeah, Theosophy, the occult, and everything else is informed a lot about.
Yeah,
vampires.
and
They
so
also
were
feel
the-
that's Madame Blavatsky right there.
Yeah, Blavatsky.
I was just gonna say, so were the people behind Nosferatu. For
Yeah.
that matter.
Yeah,
I mean-
exactly.
Let's just face it, like people in high society are big into the occult then and now.
Yes. Seeking greater power, because when you're in high society, what do you have to aspire to except more power at that point?
Exactly. But you have to get power beyond the mortal plane.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we got ourselves a bingo out of that. Also a WTF moment there with the whole all vampire movies suck, which is an absolutely insane thing for anybody to say, especially if you're you say all vampire movies suck, but also Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter is my favorite vampire movie. Like, wait, what? But yeah, so I have a little extra Halloween thing that I was given to try to read here. One of my longtime viewers, Grisella, who is a comic book artist, sent me a link to his entire little horror comic book that I thought I would do a little reading of, but I don't know if that's something that you guys either need or want to stick around for if you don't want to. So that's going to take a little bit. But anything else you guys want to mention? Anything you'd like to plug before you take your exits? Because I know you guys are busy. You got actual like jobs and families and stuff you have to deal with, whereas I'm just a schmuck single guy. Andre, you got anything coming up? Or sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. I mean, we dropped enough videos in the last few days. Please check.
Yeah.
I know,
yeah.
you guys have been a factory. There's like 3 or 4 videos in the last 72 hours.
Yeah, actually, yes. So check out the most recent one because, like, I think maybe like fewer notifications are being sent or something. We did a video on Dracula earlier today, actually, on the whole vampire theme. That was our Halloween special. Was was a little retrospective on the mini retrospective, not an ultimate one, on the 2020 Dracula from BBC, the one where Dracula is gay. So check that one out.
Yeah. And in general, if you guys don't know about Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark and now Midnight's Edge retrospectives and classics, I've been watching them for years and years and years now, ever since the Fant 4-stick controversy back in the olden days. And
that was fun.
Those are some the classic Hollywood stuff. But yeah, for insider Hollywood stuff on genre, entertainment, the politics behind the scenes, the mechanisms that move some of our entertainment and other elements of society, definitely take a look at Midnight's Edge and all the affiliate channels and all their documentaries and editorials. Learn a lot about what's going on. Sometimes the stories behind the scenes are far more interesting than what they end up actually putting up on the screen.
And also, if you are in need of a Halloween movie, check out the original Nosferatu, which you can check out on Midnight's Edge retrospectives and classics.
Yep, direct link to that is in the description below, guys. If you haven't already seen it, it's free. It's right there for you. It's really well done. The soundtrack is amazing. All the cleanup and all the translations. And, of course, Andre's golden-throated narration really sells everything in that production. But, Tom, you got anything coming up today or elsewise you want to... Got any meat radio or anything? Or maybe Tom stepped away for a minute.
Sorry. Yeah, definitely will be doing Midnight's Edge After Dark, unless Andre sends me anything else tonight. I'm sure
I don't think so. I have some family. It's Halloween. I have some family commitments, so I don't think. Yeah,
I'll probably do some Mead Radio to do a final Meadoween of the year at some point. I'm sure.
All right. Well,
maybe
guys,
even after the show.
Sure. Go check out Midnight's Edge After Dark. Again, links to all the relevant channels are in the description, as well as Andre and Tom's X accounts, whatever they call them now. And so guys, thank you so much for joining me for this. Everybody, say goodbye to Tom and Andre. There's going to be a part 2 to this stream in just a couple of minutes. I have to take a brief break myself because I've been sitting here a long time, and then I'll come back and do a special reading of a horror comic book, I should say, from our friend Grisella. So Andre, Tom, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
All right, take care, guys.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. And to everybody else, I'm going to put up the intermission screen here for just a minute or two, and then I'll be back in a few minutes. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around, for those of you that are still here. And for those of you in the future that just scanned over the please, stand by, please screen. Here we are again. So I mentioned before the break, I have a longtime viewer, artist, Grisella, who has made a horror comic. And I didn't get any creepy music, did I? Oh, dang it. I need to find some creepy music. That's what I need to do. I need to have some creepy music playing underneath this thing. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Some on-the-moment production stuff I got to do here. Let's see. I got to find a creepy music track. Let's see if I go to the YouTube audio library, right? Where purportedly, hopefully, I can find something appropriately. Ooh, how long is this? That sounds good. All right, let's do that one. All right, so I have now a musical track to use as theme music for this thing. I know, production on the fly, guys. I apologize. I'll get it figured out here in a moment. But in the meantime, yeah, so Grisella is a comic book artist. He's done lots of artwork, both for Lords of the Night back in the olden days, but also independently as a professional comic book artist. And he sent me a link the other day and asked that I might give it a whirl here on the show. So let's put on some creepy music, if it'll load here. 1 second. This is what I get for not planning ahead. I try, but sometimes. All right. Let's see. Hopefully that works. That's not overtaking my voice, I hope. I guess we'll find out. Let's see. How about we do... Okay. There we go. Okay, here we are. This is from Grisella. It's called Carnival Prizes. I'll attempt to do voices. It's probably going to be kind of bad. A link to this same comic has been put into the chat there if you want to take a look at it for yourself. I don't know how much of a narrator I'm going to be, but here we go. Carnival Prizes. We are at a fair, a carnival, if you might, and a father and son are playing one of the games. And the child says, "Come on, Dad," as Dad's gearing back to throw a baseball at one of the carnival games. And story and art by R. Grizz Mayer. "We have a winner!" Cluck clunk! As Dad throws the baseball and knocks off the milk bottles. "Here you are, son." And Dad gives a very, very happy and excited boy a brand new teddy bear. "See, folks, we have winners here! Who's next?" And the little boy's happy with his teddy bear. But then he looks off in the distance, and over near a tree is a creepy clown with, like, a saber, which might be a balloon. "Dad, it's that clown again." "Really? Where is he?" "Over there?" But the clown has disappeared. Ooh. "He was right there." "Haha, I think you've had too much cotton candy." "No, it's not that." "Come on, we better head home. We can come back tomorrow, okay?" Well, I guess the carnival's in town for more than one day. That's cool. "Okay." But then the clenched fist of the clown is right there. Oh, the music's too loud? Okay. Turn it down a smidge. My apologies. Hopefully that's all right. Later that night, the boy is alone in his room. He goes to the window, looks out, and there in the bushes outside stands the clown. Oh my gosh. The kid grabs his binoculars, looks out to get a closer look at the clown, and the clown is looking back at him with binoculars. The kid rears back in fear. He rushes towards his bed, throwing the binoculars aside, and hides under his blankets. The next day, at the carnival. Winna! Winna! Turtle! I want the turtle! Oh, Tom already left. He could have said, I like turtles. Okay, and so Dad wins a turtle for the kid. And off in the distance, there's a clown making a balloon animal for a little girl. Little girl's running off with her balloon giraffe. Mommy, Mommy, look! And the boy says, can we go home? Are you sure? We just got here. Yeah, I'm not feeling well. Okay, if you're sure. But then, later that night, the teddy bear and the turtle are sitting on his dresser's drawers. But something's ripping and skitching on the inside, and suddenly a finger emerges from the teddy bear's chest, and then a hand, and then an arm, and then from the turtle, the same thing. Something's crawling out of the stuffed animals. The little boy wakes up to the noises. Dad? Dad! And there are demons! Demons grabbing the boy! Grabbing onto his leg, tearing at his flesh! And then the door is kicked in by a giant clown shoe. Get away from the boy, you son of a bitch! Sprays the demon with water, and then pulls out his sword. Oh my gosh, get outside now! What the hell? The demons scream from the bedroom. Moments later, they've been eliminated. The family is fine. Yeah, I'm gonna need a cleanup crew, stat. No, nothing acidic. And the clown, now with his hat off, all disheveled, goes to the child sitting on the sidewalk. Are you doing okay? Yeah, I think so. How did you know those things were there? I knew where they were hiding, but I couldn't do anything until they revealed themselves. When I saw you take them, I had to keep an eye on them and you. I hoped I wasn't too late. Speaking of scared, can I tell you something? Sure. You were scaring me. Is it stupid to be scared of clowns? Not at all. A lot of people are scared of clowns. Querophobia is what it's called. Sorry for scaring you. Does anything scare you? Dolls. Dun dun dun! The clown was the hero! The demon-slaying super agent. And yes, that's from Grisella. Both the story and the art. Again, a link to his DeviantArt there is in the chat if you want to take a look at it for yourself. But yeah, there's a Halloween story for it. The clown becomes the hero. How often does that happen? I mean, unless it's like Ronald McDonald or something, I guess. There you go. Let's see. You're ridiculous. I fucking hate clowns. Hey, that's not nice. This was a good clown. This was a good clown. Let's see. Asan, I've read too many mangoes. Keep trying to read this right to left. How do you read a mango? You just squeeze it and feel the texture or something? I don't know. Let's see. Yep, so that's from Grisella. But yeah, that's the Halloween show, guys. I didn't have really anything else planned. I was glad to have Andre and Tom on, talk a little nerdery about vampires. Like I say, I know far too much about some vampire lore and bits and pieces, especially from Vampire the Masquerade. I used to run quite a few Vampire the Masquerade games back in the day, until the woke mob took over the IP and the company that makes it, and the 5th edition of the game is just... They started making it all not good. They took out all the fun and started putting in a bunch of garbage. Last good edition of Vampire the Masquerade was probably the 20th anniversary edition of the book. But there were a couple of changes in there I wasn't that jazzed about. But the system's much cleaner. The system in the V20 book is much cleaner than that. Oh, I know what I'll show off. While I got you here. Vampire Halloween kind of thing. Let me find that real quick. 1 second. Where did I put it now is the next question. Yeah, so speaking of vampires, I did a little nerdery thing. I've showed this off before. On Let's see, where did I put it here? Here we go. Let me pull it up. So, as a piece of nerdery, also going back to both Vampire the Masquerade and vampire lore and such, there was a video game, a computer game from several years ago called Vampire from Focus Entertainment that had a different spin on the vampire lore and genre and such things. I really enjoyed the game, but the more that I played it, the more that I was more curious about the lore than anything else. And also being a fan of Vampire the Masquerade, I decided to put these two things together, if you can believe it. And I made my own sort of game book. Oh, that's far too large. Hold on a second here. That's what she said. Here you go. Vampire for Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. Yes, this is a full-fledged kind of supplement role-playing book. Let me scroll through here. Yes, so you have all of my disclaimers and such. This is a non-commercial work and all that kind of thing. Table of contents. I did borrow some from the actual lore from the game, but I also extrapolated a whole bunch of stuff in order to make my game book. So you have powers with all the descriptions of how they work in the system, some modifications from the main systems. Here's all the vampiric powers: coagulation, defensive powers, blood barrier. But the thing that I really love the most is the little clan descriptions or vampire types profiles that I cooked up for the Ekon, which are the more human-looking vampires. And then you've got the Skull, which are more of the yucky-looking, disease-ridden vampires. And then you've got the Volkod, which are the big monstrous vampires. And then, of course, you have the mortal agencies that are working for or against the vampires. I'm just showing off now. It's a full-fledged sort of source book kind of thing. If you'd like a copy of this, I'll throw it up. I've already posted it once over in the Discord server, but I can post it up again if anybody's interested. The one thing that I did a lot of extra work on that I haven't actually quote-unquote published yet, in the game they mention this organization, the Druid Order, only offhandedly, only in the most casual sense, and it is sort of like an adversarial organization of vampires. They say very little about it, but I extrapolated from what little description that they had, and I have started writing, or at least in the past I've started writing, a very extensive fan fiction source book for the Druid Order. I don't even know if I have anything I could show off about that yet, if I decide to actually keep going along with it. Let's see. Yeah, I've only got like a cover image that I cooked up for it. I'll show you that if you care. It's my show. I can do what I want. That's right. I can do what I want. So here's the cover I cooked up for it. Yeah, the Druid Order is like some ancient Scottish sort of cult of vampires or something, and so I came up with some ancient Scottish terminology. Anyway, there you go. And I'm not taking credit for the artwork, by the way. All the artwork comes from concept art or otherwise for the Vampire game. So, but it's a fan creation. Otherwise, yeah, there you go. If you're interested in that kind of thing, let me know. I'll throw it into the Discord server. By the way, do you know I have a Discord server? Well, I'll tell you, I have a Discord server. Let me tell you all about the Discord server as I cook up a link for the Discord server right now. Generating link, copy link, and there's a link to the Discord server in the chat right now. If you'd like to join the Discord server, you just have to click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you actually watched the stream, are not a robot, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. Today's secret word is vampire. I know, it's a stretch, all things considered. But yes, just say, hello, vampire, and I'll know that you watched the show. Because of other things tonight, guys, I'm going to take a break from the usual TED Excellence schedule, so there won't be a regular TED Excellence tonight, but rest assured, I've got plenty stacked up for the future. But otherwise, I just want to wish everybody a happy Halloween. Have a safe one. Enjoy the trick-or-treating and or the costumes and or the candy or whatever you decide to do on Halloween. Programming note, I'll be here per usual Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern for the Sunday stream, where I'll talk about a series of things that I noticed over the week that I found interesting. And then on Tuesday, November 5th, even though I might regret it eventually, starting around 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to begin my election night coverage live stream, following along with the events of the night. Got myself a bottle of Jack Daniels and plenty of Dr. Pepper to keep myself motivated as we go, and we see exactly what will the future hold for American politics over at least the next 4 years. We'll find out Tuesday night or the week after, because obviously in America we can't count up our votes in a reasonable amount of time now, apparently, or something. But either way, look for me that night. I'm going to stay up as long as my energy and or the news will permit me, and it'll be a marathon, but we'll see what happens, and we'll follow it along together. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Very much appreciate it, whether it was to myself or any of our friends up there in the chat box. But otherwise, everyone, hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. Hope you have a good Friday ahead of you. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.